Silence, I will not be moved.
We'll see about that, Your Honor.
What do you think you are doing?
In a gripping tale of power, prejudice, and poetic justice, a late-night traffic stop spirals into a nightmare when respected Judge Maya Johnson, mistaken for an ordinary black citizen, is illegally arrested by two overzealous cops who taunt her, strip her of dignity, and cruelly shave her hair to teach her a lesson. From the tense roadside confrontation to the degrading hours inside the precinct, Maya endures humiliation in silence, memorizing every face and every word. But the morning bail hearing becomes a stunning reversal. Still wearing her orange jumpsuit, Maya calmly walks into the courtroom, to reveal that she is the presiding judge. Before a stunned public and flashing cameras, she dons her black robe, calls witnesses, exposes body cam footage of the officer's abuse, and orders their immediate suspension. The viral trial sparks national outrage, leads to criminal charges, sweeping police reforms, and a powerful reminder that justice is not a privilege for the few, but a right for all. Headlights sliced through the damp midnight air as Maya Johnson guided her Lexus down the nearly empty highway. The rain had slowed to a mist, the city lights stretching like a blurred watercolor in the rearview mirror. It had been a long day of hearings, but she felt oddly peaceful until flashing red and blue lights exploded behind her. Her chest tightened. Stay calm, Maya, she slowed, signaled, and pulled over. Two squad car doors slammed. Footsteps approached. A sharp beam of a flashlight pierced through her window. "Evening, ma'am," a deep male voice drawled. "License and registration." Maya lowered her window. "Of course, officer." Her voice was steady. "May I ask why I'm being stopped?" "Broken taillight," the officer said quickly. His namatag read Blake. Beside him stood a younger officer, her wrist chewing gum like he owned the night. "My taillight isn't broken," Maya said quietly. "I checked it this morning." Blake smirked. "Maybe it broke tonight." He leaned closer, flashlight flicking across her face. "Where are you headed this late?" "Home, from work." "Work, huh?" Harris stepped forward, eyes scanning the interior. "Mind if we take a look inside?" "Yes, I mind," Maya replied, her grip tightening on the steering wheel. "There's no probable cause for a search." Blake's smile faded. "Ma'am, we can make this easy, or we can make it hard." Her heartbeat quickened. "Don't escalate. I've given you my license and registration," she said, voice low but firm. "Am I free to go?" Blake tapped the flashlight against the door. "Step out of the vehicle," Maya inhaled, steadying herself. Slowly, she opened the door and stepped into the damp night. Harris circled the car. "Fancy ride," he said. "Not bad for." He stopped, but the sneer finished the sentence. "For what?" Maya asked, eyes locking on his dot. Harris chuckled. "Never mind." Blake gestured toward the hood. "Hands where I can see him." "This isn't necessary," Maya said. "Neither is resisting." Blake shot back. "Spread your feet." The cold metal of the hood bit through her coat as he patted her down. She forced herself to stay still. "Empty the trunk," Harris said. "No," Maya answered. Blake exchanged a look with his partner. "Ma'am, you sure you want to play lawyer out here? Middle of the night. No witnesses. I know my rights." Blake leaned in, his breath sharp with coffee. "Rights don't mean much when you're outnumbered." For a second, silence pressed around them, the hiss of passing tires, the buzz of distant street lamps. Then Harris grinned. "Probable cause, suspicious attitude, pop the trunk." Before Maya could respond, Blake reached for the latch. Her voice cut through the dark. "Touch that car without a warrant and you'll regret it." The officers froze. Blake's jaw tightened. "Is that a threat?" "It's a fact," Maya said evenly. The radio on Blake's shoulder crackled. "Unit 12, status check." Blake pressed the button. "Traffic stop, possible non-compliance copy," the dispatcher replied. Harris shifted. "Let's just bring her in." Blake nodded. "Ma'am, you're under arrest for obstructing an investigation." Maya's pulse thundered. "For asserting my constitutional rights." Blake stepped closer. "Turn around, hands behind your back." Her mind raced. Reveal her identity now. No, too soon. They needed to expose themselves fully. "Turn around." Blake barked. She turned. The metal cuffs snapped cold around her wrists. "This is unlawful," she said, her voice a quiet blade. Blake smirked. "Tell it to the judge." Maya looked at him, eyes unflinching. "I will." As they led her to the squad car, Harris muttered, "These people always think they're special." Blake laughed. Tonight, she learned she ain't. The back door slammed. Rain began to fall harder. streaking the windows with crooked lines of light. Maya leaned her head against the glass. You have no idea who you're dealing with, she thought, anger simmering beneath her calm. The cruiser pulled away, sirens off, the city swallowing them whole. Rain drummed on the roof of the patrol car, a relentless rhythm that matched the pounding of Maya Johnson's heart. The back seat smelled of damp vinyl and stale coffee. The cage between her and the officers gleaming faintly under passing streetlights. Her wrists throbbed against the cold metal cuffs. Up front, Officer Blake drove with one hand on the wheel, his eyes fixed on the slick blacktop. Officer Harris lounged in the passenger seat, gum snapping in slow, deliberate pops. Guess we're doing her a favor, Harris said, voice low but carrying. Better she learns tonight than later. Blake chuckled. Yeah, some folks need a reminder of their place. Maya kept her gaze on the blurred world outside. They think they're untouchable. Her silence was a shield. Every word they uttered was a weapon she intended to use later. You see the way she looked at us, Harris went on, like we're beneath her. Blake snorted. Probably one of those corporate types, thinks a paycheck makes her royalty. Harris turned slightly, peering back through the cage. What's your job, sweetheart? Social worker, maybe a paralegal. No too uppity for that. Maya met his eyes through the bars. Does it matter? Harris smirked. It matters when you act like you're better than the law. I respect the law, Maya said evenly. That's why I know when it's being broken. The car went quiet for a beat. Blake's jaw flexed. You got a mouth on you. Words aren't crimes, Maya replied. Harris laughed. Not yet. The car slowed as they turned off the main road onto a dimly lit side street. Maya's stomach tightened. Why are we leaving the highway? Shortcut, Blake said. No lights, no cameras, Harris added, almost singing the words, just you and us. Maya pressed her back against the seat, forcing her breathing to stay steady. They want fear. Don't give it to them. Harris twisted to face her fully. You know, you could make this easier. Apologize. Say you were out of line. Maybe we forget the paperwork. I will not apologize for existing, Maya said. Blake gave a sharp laugh. She's got fire. Harris grinned. Fire can be put out. The radio crackled, breaking the tension. Unit 12, status. Blake grabbed the mic. En route to station with 1. Copy, the dispatcher replied. Booking room is ready. Blake tossed the mic aside. Looks like you're headed for a long night, ma'am. Maya's lips tightened. I know my rights. You have no grounds for arrest. Obstruction, Harris said breezily. Plenty of grounds. Fabricated grounds, Maya shot back. Blake's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. Careful. Judges don't like loudmouths. Maya almost smiled. You have no idea how ironic that is. The cruiser turned into the police station's parking lot. Sodium lights cast everything in a sickly orange glow. Blake parked, killed the engine, and turned in his seat. Listen, he said, voice suddenly soft. Cooperate and you'll be out by morning. Make it hard. And he let the sentence hang. And what? Maya asked. Harris grinned. And maybe we teach you a lesson about respect. Maya leaned forward as far as the cuffs allowed. Respect is earned, not stolen. Blake's smile thinned. Get out of the car. The door yanked open. Cold air rushed in. Harris grabbed her arm too tightly and led her toward the entrance. The station loomed like a concrete fortress, windows glowing with harsh fluorescent light. Inside, the air smelled of bleach and old paper. A tired desk sergeant glanced up, his eyes flicking from the officers to Maya. Obstruction, he asked. Yep, Blake said. Wouldn't cooperate. Mouthy. The sergeant's gaze lingered on Maya. Something flickered their doubt. Maybe Buff, he said nothing. They marched her down a narrow hallway, the sound of their boots echoing off the tiled floor. Through a set of heavy doors, a booking area came into view. Fingerprint scanners, metal benches, the faint buzz of a vending machine. Harris guided her to a bench. Sit. Maya remained standing. I'd like to call my attorney. Blake smirked. Phones are for compliant guests. The sergeant cleared his throat. Policy says she gets a call. Blake shot him a look. After processing, Maya's eyes swept the room, noting every camera, every badge number. Memorize everything, every face, every word. Harris leaned close. What's with the stare? Planning a lawsuit, planning justice, Maya replied. Blake laughed sharply. Good luck. We've got the report, our word against yours. Truth has a way of surfacing, Maya said, voice like steel. Harris rolled his eyes. Save the speeches for the judge. Maya held his gaze. I intend to. For a heartbeat. The room seemed to still. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. casting hard shadows on the officers' faces. Blake broke the silence with a barked order to a clerk behind the counter. Get a cell ready. She's spending the night. The young black clerk hesitated, eyes flicking to Maya, then quickly looked away. Maya caught the glance. A quiet acknowledgement, an unspoken ICU dot as Harris tightened the cuffs and led her toward the holding cells. Blake muttered under his breath, low enough that only Maya could hear, "Let's see how high and mighty you feel after a night in a cage." Maya lifted her chin. Cages don't break truth. Blake's eyes narrowed. We'll see. The heavy door slammed behind them, the sound echoing like a warning and a promise. The holding cell was a gray shoebox, its concrete floor damp with condensation. A flickering light above hummed like a restless insect. Naomi sat on the metal bench, back straight, hands folded, eyes fixed on the far wall. Her scalp throbbed, where the clippers had scraped skin, a faint metallic scent of blood mingling with disinfectant. A soft voice broke the quiet. "Hey," whispered a young woman from the neighboring cell. Her face, framed by dark curls, peeked through the bars. "You okay?" Naomi turned slightly. "I will be. They shaved you," the woman said, disbelief sharpening her tone. That's not normal. It's not lawful either," Naomi replied. Her voice was low but steady. "They want humiliation to feel like power." The woman moved closer to the bars. "Name's Rosa. DUI. You don't look like someone who belongs here." "Neither do you," Naomi said. Rosa gave a dry laugh. Touché across the corridor. Two men slouched in another cell, whispering in Spanish. One of them raised a fist in silent solidarity when Naomi glanced his way. She offered a small nod in return. The hallway door creaked open. Officer Keller appeared, coffee cup in hand. "Lights stay on all night," he announced to no one in particular. "Keeps the rats from sleeping." He grinned when Naomi didn't flinch. "Sweet dreams, princess." The door shut behind him with a heavy clank. Rosa muttered, "Bastard." Naomi inhaled slowly, releasing the breath with measured calm. Her father's lessons about breath, about control, echoed in her mind. Do not let them write your emotions, write your own. Hours passed in the timeless haze of fluorescent glow. Somewhere in the building, officers laughed at a television, a copier hummed. The faint aroma of microwaved food seeped into the corridor. Rosa shifted on her bench. "You really a judge?" "Yes, for real, yes," Naomi repeated. "Municipal court, downtown." "Then, why didn't you just tell them?" Naomi met her eyes. "I did. They chose not to hear." Rosa frowned. "That's insane. Don't judges get, like immunity?" "No one is immune to racism," Naomi said softly. Silence stretched between them, heavy but strangely comforting. Naomi closed her eyes for a moment. Behind her lids, memories rose. First day on the bench. Her mother's proud smile. The oaths she swore to uphold justice without fear or favor. Tonight felt like the test hidden in that promise. Her scalp itched under the uneven stubble, but she refused to scratch. Pain was temporary. Records were permanent. A distant clock chimed midnight. Rosa whispered, "You gonna sue them?" Naomi opened her eyes. "The law will speak. But first, mourning." The words sounded like prophecy more than plan. Somewhere down the hall, footsteps approached. Two officers paused near the desk, their voices carrying videos already online. One said, "No way," replied the other. "Kid on the street posted it. Got thousands of views already." Naomi allowed herself the faintest flicker of hope. Witnesses, evidence, light cracking through the dark. The officers' voices faded. Rosa leaned toward the bars again. "Sounds like people saw what happened." "They did," Naomi said. "And that matters." Minutes or hours bled together. Naomi remained upright, refusing the bench's cold invitation to slump. Her silence became a quiet fortress, each breath a brick. Near dawn, the fluorescent buzz softened as gray light seeped through the tiny high window. A new day. The corridor settled back into silence, but it was no longer the silence of defeat. It was the heavy, electric pause before a gavel falls. Morning was coming, and with it, reckoning. The holding cell smelled of disinfectant and rusted metal. Maya Johnson sat on a cold bench, her wrists finally freed from the cuffs but still burning from the pressure. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, bathing the gray cinderblock walls in a sterile glow. A single camera blinked red in the corner, its tiny light the only witness. Across the hall, the booking desk hummed with late-night monotony. Phones rang, keyboards clacked, and every so often, A burst of laughter floated in from the officer's lounge, but inside the cell, time slowed to a suffocating crawl. A young black woman approached the bars, clipboard in hand. Her name tag read Danielle. Her dark eyes flicked nervously toward the corridor before settling on Maya. "Ma'am," she said softly, voice low enough not to carry, "I'm supposed to get some information for processing." Maya stood, smoothing the wrinkles in her coat. "Of course." Danielle hesitated, biting her lip. "You okay? They were rough bringing you in." Maya met her gaze, searching for sincerity. She found it in the tremor of Danielle's voice. "I'm fine," Maya said. "Thank you for asking." Danielle leaned a little closer. "They said obstruction, but it didn't look like that to me." "Because it wasn't," Maya replied quietly. Before Danielle could say more, Officer Harris strode in, a styrofoam cup of coffee in hand. "Move it along, rookie," he barked. "Paperwork, not chit-chat." Danielle flinched. "Yes, officer." Maya's eyes followed Harris as he approached the cell. He grinned, a predator savoring the pause before the pounce. "Comfortable?" he asked. "This isn't a hotel," Maya said calmly. "True," Harris replied, sipping his coffee. "Hotels don't have mandatory hygiene checks." Maya frowned. "What are you talking about?" Before Harris could answer, Officer Blake entered, carrying a clipboard and a pair of rubber gloves. His smile was sharp, deliberate. "Station policy," Blake said. "All detainees must be searched for contraband. Hair, too. Safety hazard." Maya's stomach tightened. "There is no such policy." Blake tapped the clipboard. "Sanitation code, Section O. Who cares about the number? We know what we're doing." "You have no legal authority to cut my hair," Maya said, her voice hardening. Harris smirked. "Authority, lady, we are the authority." Danielle's stiffened eyes darting between them. "Sir, I don't think." "Not your concern," Blake snapped. "Go finish the booking forms." Danielle opened her mouth, then closed it. Her eyes met Maya's for a brief, silent heartbeat before she turned and walked away. Maya stepped closer to the bars. "If you touch my hair, you will regret it." Blake chuckled. "Big talk from a suspect." "Big talk from a coward," Maya shot back. The room seemed to tighten around them. Harris's grin faltered for a fraction of a second. Blake leaned in, voice low. "You think you can intimidate us?" "I don't need to," Maya said. "Your actions will speak for themselves." For a moment, no one moved. The fluorescent lights buzzed like distant wasps. Then Blake straightened. "We'll see how much you talk after processing." He turned to Harris. "Watch her." "I'll get the kit." "The kit?" Maya asked. Harris's grin returned. "You'll find out." They left her with the sound of the door slamming shut. The echo reverberated through the hallway like a warning shot. Maya sank back onto the bench, her pulse pounding. She pressed her palms together, forcing herself to breathe. "Stay calm. Document everything. Every word. Every face." The door creaked open again. Danielle slipped back inside, eyes wide. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "They're not supposed to do this." "Then stop them," Maya said. "I can't." Danielle's voice broke. "They'll transfer me. Or worse." Maya stepped to the bars. "Listen to me. You have power. Small, but real. Witness everything. Write it down. If they hurt me, your record could save lives." Danielle swallowed hard. "I'll try." Before Maya could say more, Blake returned with a small plastic case. Inside lay a pair of clippers, a comb, and a single disposable razor. Harris followed, rolling up his sleeves. "Sanitation time." Maya's heart thudded, but she stood tall. "This is an assault." Blake unlocked the cell with a metallic click. "It's policy." "No," Maya said. "It's humiliation." Blake smirked. "Call it what you want." Danielle reappeared behind the desk, frozen in place as the officers stepped inside. Harris moved first, reaching for Maya's arm. She jerked away. "Don't touch me." Blake grabbed her wrist, grip iron tight. "Easy, sweetheart." "Let go," Maya hissed. He tightened his hold. "Resisting will make it worse." Maya stared into his eyes, unflinching. "Every second of this is a crime," Blake sneered. "Then call a cop." The clippers buzzed to life, a vicious whine that filled the room. Danielle's hand flew to her mouth. Maya locked eyes with her. "Remember," she said, voice steady. "Witness everything." Harris stepped closer. Clippers poised. Last chance to cooperate. Maya drew a slow, deliberate breath. "Do what you came to do. But know this truth has a way of surfacing." The buzzing grew louder, echoing off the cinder blocks. Blake leaned in, close enough for Maya to smell the bitter coffee on his breath. "Tonight, truth doesn't matter," he whispered. "We do." But even as he said it, Maya saw the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. a shadow of fear. A crack in the armor. The hallway door opened with a metallic groan. Sergeant Miller entered, clipboard in hand. His eyes avoided Naomi's shaved head. "Court transport in 30, he muttered. Naomi stood, chin high. "I look forward to it." For the first time, Miller hesitated. Something in her calm pierced the routine. He left without a word. Rosa grinned faintly. "You're scary, in a good way." Naomi allowed a small smile. "It's not fear, it's preparation." It was small, but it was enough. The door opened again. A harsh clang that broke the tension. The desk sergeant's voice cut through the charged air. "Blake, Harris Captain wants you. Now." Blake cursed under his breath. "Hold her here," he told Harris. Harris hesitated. "But the now," the sergeant barked. Blake snapped the clippers off and stormed out. Harris following with a frustrated grunt. Silence settled like a heavy blanket. Maya exhaled slowly, her heart hammering against her ribs. Danielle stepped forward, eyes shining. I'll write everything," she whispered. Maya nodded. "Good. The world will hear this." Outside, footsteps receded into the distance, leaving only the buzz of the lights and the quiet, unbreakable resolve of a woman who refused to be broken. The fluorescent lights hummed like angry bees when Blake and Harris returned. Their boots struck the tile in a slow, deliberate rhythm that filled the corridor with menace. Behind them, the desk sergeant lingered uneasily near the booking counter, pretending to shuffle papers. Maya Johnson stood from the bench, shoulders squared. The clippers were back in Blake's hand-fresh batteries, a new metallic whine when he flicked the switch. "Captain gave the green light," Blake said, his grin tight and humorless. "Sanitation protocol, hair removal required." Danielle, the young clerk, stepped forward before she could stop herself. "Sir, there's not your department, rookie," Blake snapped. "Go file something." Danielle's mouth opened, then closed. Her eyes darted toward Maya, apologetic and terrified. Maya felt the sharp edge of fury rise in her chest, but her voice came out calm and level. "You have no legal authority to cut my hair." Blake's grin widened. "Authorities standing right in front of you." Harris cracked his knuckles, leaning against the bars. "Let's get this over with." The door clanged open. Blake gestured with the clippers. "Step forward." Maya didn't move. "I will not consent to assault." Blake shrugged. "Consent isn't required. And this is battery," she said. "Every second you continue is a crime." Blake tilted his head, mock sympathy in his eyes. "You can file your complaint after processing. Anyone cares." The clippers buzzed louder as he stepped inside the cell. The sound vibrated in Maya's chest, a mechanical growl that made the air feel thinner. Harris followed, latex gloves snapping as he pulled them tight. "Hold her steady," Blake ordered. Maya backed to the far wall, her palms flat against the cold cinder blocks. Her heart pounded, but her gaze remained fixed on Blake. "I will remember every word, every action. So will the cameras." Blake barked a short laugh. "Those cameras, they're for show. Tape gets lost all the time." Harris moved in first. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." "You've already made it criminal," Maya said. Harris lunged. Maya sidestepped, quick and precise, but the narrow cell left nowhere to run. His gloved hand caught her sleeve. "Got you," he hissed. Blake grabbed her other arm. "Easy now." The clippers drew closer, their buzz filling her ears like an oncoming storm. Maya forced herself to breathe, her voice slicing through the tension. "You think this will silence me," she said. "It won't. It will only amplify what you are." Blake hesitated for a fraction of a second. Then, jaw tight, he pressed the buzzing blades against the crown of her head. The first pass was a violent wisp, her hair falling in dark curls to the floor. A cold draft licked the newly exposed skin. Maya clenched her teeth but refused to flinch. Every lock that tumbled felt like a statement, a record of their cruelty. "Look at that," Harris said, forcing a laugh. "Whole new woman." Blake guided the clippers in rough strokes, each movement more careless than the last. Hair scattered across the concrete like black feathers. Danielle reappeared in the doorway, clipboard clutched to her chest. Her eyes widened at the sight, but she stayed silent. "Almost done," Blake said, his voice a brittle sing-song. Maya's voice cut through the room, low and resonant. "History remembers men like you." Blake paused, meeting her eyes in the grimy mirror bolted to the wall. Something flickered their annoyance, maybe fear, but he forced a smirk. "History is written by the winners," he said. "No," Maya replied, "by the survivors." Harris chuckled, but the sound was uneasy. The clippers buzzed again, grazing the side of her scalp until nothing remained but a faint shadow of stubble. Blake flicked the switch, silence crashing down like a heavy door. He stepped back, breathing harder than he wanted to show. There, he said. Clean, safe, compliant. Maya turned slowly to face him, her bare scalp gleaming under the harsh lights. Her eyes were unyielding. You haven't won anything. Blake dropped the clippers into the case with a metallic clatter. We'll see. Danielle finally spoke, her voice trembling but clear. This isn't right. Blake shot her a glare. Not your concern. It's everyone's concern. Danielle whispered. Harris snapped his gloves off and tossed them in the trash. Write all the reports you want. Rookie, no one cares. Blake motioned toward the door. Come on, Captain wants the paperwork finished. The two officers left, their footsteps echoing down the corridor. The heavy door slammed, leaving Maya and Danielle in the charged silence. Danielle stepped closer to the bars, her eyes shining with unshed tears. I'm so sorry, she said. I tried to. You witnessed it, Maya interrupted softly. That's what matters. Remember everything. Date, time, names. Danielle nodded quickly, clutching her clipboard like a lifeline. I will, I swear. Maya sank back onto the bench, her scalp tingling where the clippers had grazed her skin. Her reflection in the scratched metal mirror stared back and bowed, unbroken. They had taken her hair, but not her power. Outside, Blake's laughter echoed faintly down the hallway, brittle and hollow. It sounded less like triumph and more like fear, dressed as bravado. Maya closed her eyes and let a slow breath escape. They thought humiliation would silence her. Instead, it sharpened her resolve. Tomorrow, she thought. Tomorrow, they'll learn who I am. The buzz of the fluorescent lights continued overhead, but beneath it, Maya felt the steady beat of her own heart, strong, deliberate, unstoppable. Gray light seeped through the narrow slit of the holding cell's window, painting the floor in cold stripes of dawn. Maya Johnson sat upright on the metal bench, her bare scalp prickling against the chill. The night had been long, endless buzz of fluorescent lights, the stink of bleach and sweat, but her mind was razor sharp. Footsteps echoed down the hallway. The cell door clanged open, and Officer Harris appeared, coffee in hand, eyes rimmed with fatigue but still carrying that smug gleam. Well, he drawled. Sleeping Beauty's awake. Maya didn't move. What time is it? Time for your big debut, Harris said. Court's in an hour. Behind him, Officer Blake entered, crisp and freshly shaven, as if the night's cruelty had been nothing more than routine. He gave her a mock salute. Judge will see you for bail. Maybe you'll cry pretty enough to get out quick. Maya's eyes narrowed. Maybe the judge will see through false charges. Blake smirked. Not likely. Judge today is a stickler for law and order. Loves cops, hates troublemakers. Harris chuckled. He'll eat you alive. Maya's pulse remained steady. They still don't know. Their arrogance was almost comforting, it confirmed. They had no clue who they'd dragged in. Blake tossed a folded orange jumpsuit onto the bench. Change. Prisoner dress code. Maya picked up the jumpsuit, its stiff fabric rough against her fingertips. I'm not a prisoner. I'm a detainee. Same thing to me, Blake said. Strip the attitude before the bailiff does it for you. Harris leaned against the bars. Hope you like cameras. Courtrooms packed in the mornings. Everyone gets a good look. Maya turned her back to them, changing calmly. Each movement was deliberate, controlled. If they wanted shame, they would not find it here. As she stepped into the hallway, Blake's grin widened. Nice haircut, suits you. Maya met his gaze. I wear truth well. The smirk faltered for just a heartbeat. They led her through a warren of corridors toward the transport van. Every officer they passed gave a cursory glance, some indifferent, some curious, a few showing flickers of unease. Maya memorized faces, badges, and names like a silent litany. Outside, dawn had thickened into a pale silver sky. The air smelled of wet asphalt and exhaust as they loaded her into the van. The ride was short but jarring, the metal seat vibrating with every bump. Harris sat opposite her, arms crossed. Better rehearse your plea. Judges don't like silence. Maya looked directly at him. Silence isn't weakness. It's strategy. Blake barked a laugh. Strategy. Lady, you're about to beg for bail. No, Maya said quietly. I'm about to speak the truth. Harris rolled his eyes. Good luck. Truth doesn't pay the bills. Blake smirked. Truth doesn't keep you out of jail either. Maya let their words hang unanswered, the rhythm of the road carrying her closer to the moment she'd been waiting for. The courthouse loomed ahead, its stone facade streaked with early morning rain. Reporters milled outside, cameras slung over shoulders, scanning for a story. Blake's grin tightened. Looks like your little stunt's gonna make the news. Perfect, Maya murmured. What was that? Harris asked. Nothing you'd understand, she replied. They escorted her through a side entrance, past security, and into a holding room adjacent to the courtroom. A bailiff entered, clipboard in hand. Johnson, Maya, he said briskly. Bail hearing, 5 minutes. Copy that, Blake replied. She's ready. The bailiff glanced at Maya, his brow furrowing briefly before he masked it with professional neutrality. Something about her composure clearly didn't match the narrative he'd been given. When the bailiff left, Blake leaned in, voice low. Here's a tip. Don't mouth off in there. Judges hate grandstanding. Maya tilted her head. I'll keep that in mind. Harris grinned. Maybe we'll even stick around to watch you squirm. Maya met his eyes. By all means, stay. Blake's smirk returned. Wouldn't miss it. Minutes later, the bailiff returned. Bring her in. The hallway outside the courtroom buzzed with early morning tension, lawyers rustling papers, clerks moving briskly, the low murmur of spectators gathering inside. Maya walked between Blake and Harris, her orange jumpsuit stark against the polished wood and marble. Every step echoed like a countdown. Blake leaned closer, his voice a taunting whisper. Better hope the judge is in a good mood. Maya allowed herself the smallest of smiles. Oh, I think they will be. Blake frowned, puzzled by the certainty in her tone. The bailiff pushed open the heavy double doors. A hush fell over the room as the crowd turned to look. The officers straightened, expecting to witness another routine arraignment. Instead, they were walking a shaven-headed woman into a theater of reckoning. Maya stepped forward, chin high, eyes calm. Let them look, she thought. The stage is set. The heavy double doors creaked open, spilling a soft murmur of voices into the marble hallway. Maya Johnson stepped forward, flanked by Officer Blake and Officer Harris, the orange jumpsuit hanging loose against her frame. Her bare scalp gleamed beneath the chandelier's cold light, a quiet defiance against the humiliation meant to break her. Inside, the courtroom buzzed with low conversations. Reporters whispered behind raised phones, pens poised. Attorneys shuffled files. A few early spectators craned their necks to get a better look at the woman who had, apparently, resisted arrest. The bailiff's voice cut through the hum. Case of State v. Johnson. Maya. Defendant present. Maya's shoes squeaked against the polished floor as she walked toward the defense table. The sound was louder than it should have been. A steady heartbeat in the cavernous room. Eyes front, Blake muttered behind her, his voice sharp with control. Wouldn't want you tripping in front of the cameras. Maya didn't turn, afraid of what they might see. Harris chuckled. They'll see exactly what we wrote in the report. The clerk at the front looked up, his eyes narrowing with faint recognition. He tilted his head as if something about her presence tugged at memory. Name for the record, the clerk asked. Maya Johnson, she said evenly. The name rippled through the gallery like a tiny current. A few journalists began scribbling faster. Blake stepped close enough for only her to hear. Don't think dropping a fancy name gets you out of this. Maya remained silent. Her power was in patience. The public defender assigned to her, Kaisa Harris, man in a rumpled gray suit, barely glanced at her. He leaned over, whispering, "We'll enter a not guilty plea. Request bail. Keep it simple. Do what you need," Maya replied calmly. He gave her a puzzled look, sensing something beyond ordinary defiance, but unable to name it. The bailiff called for order. All rise for the honorable judge. The side door remained closed. A murmur passed through the gallery as seconds stretched. Blake leaned forward, whispering with a smirk, "Maybe the judge overslept, or maybe they already know you're guilty." Maya's eyes stayed fixed on the empty bench. "Careful, officer. The day is full of surprises." Harris chuckled under his breath. "Whatever you say," the clerk shuffled papers, glancing nervously toward the still-closed door. We expect the presiding judge momentarily." The gallery buzzed again. Cameras clicked. Reporters whispered speculation. Maya could feel the tension building. A silent crescendo. Her heart beat in rhythm with the anticipation, not fear but resolve. Blake tapped his boot impatiently. "This is ridiculous. Judge, better hurry. I've got rounds." Harris leaned back in his chair. "Relax. We'll be heroes by lunch." Maya turned slightly, her voice quiet but clear. "Heroes don't hide behind lies." Blake's jaw tightened. "Watch your mouth." "Why?" she asked softly. "Truth makes you nervous." Before Blake could respond, the side door opened at last. A bailiff stepped out, face composed but eyes sharp. "Court is now in session," he announced. The Honorable Judge Maya Johnson presiding. The words landed like a thunderclap. A collective gasp rippled through the courtroom. Reporters froze mid. The clerk nearly dropped his papers. Blake blinked, confusion shattering into panic. Harris's smirk collapsed, leaving only stunned silence. Maya rose from the defense table. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then she stepped toward the bench with calm, measured strides, the orange jumpsuit swaying with each step. Every eye followed her as the bailiff approached, extending a black robe with ceremonial care. "Your Honor," the bailiff said, his voice carrying reverence now. "Your robe." Maya accepted it, the fabric soft but weighty in her hands. She slipped it over her shoulders with deliberate grace. The transformation almost ceremonial. Gasps and murmurs filled the room as the reality sank in. The defendant was the judge. Blake's voice cracked first. What is this?" Maya turned, her gaze slicing through the air like a blade. "This," she said, "is justice." Harris stumbled to his feet. You tricked us." "No," Maya replied evenly. "You revealed yourselves." The gallery erupted, cameras flashing, reporters whispering furiously. The bailiff pounded his gavel. "Order, order," in the court. Maya ascended the steps to the bench, her every movement a quiet declaration of authority reclaimed. She settled into the habak chair, the black robe draping like armor. "Officers Blake and Harris," she said, her voice resonant and commanding, "you will remain present as this court reviews the charges you fabricated." Blake sputtered. You can't preside over your own case." "This is not my case," Maya replied, eyes sharp as glass. "This is the people's case, and the people will hear what happened last night." The reporters' pens scratched frantically. Camera lenses zoomed in on the officers' paling faces. Maya leaned forward, her voice a measured thunder. "You sought to degrade, humiliate, and violate the rights of a citizen you presumed powerless. Instead, you stand exposed before the law." Blake opened his mouth, then closed it, jaw trembling. Harris's hands twitched at his sides, the bravado draining from him like air from a punctured tire. Maya let the silence stretch, each second tightening the invisible noose around their arrogance. "This court," she continued, "will now address the matter of State v. Johnson, a case built on lies, intimidation, and abuse of power. Before we proceed, both arresting officers are ordered to remain seated and silent." The bailiff stepped closer to them, one hand resting deliberately on his holster. Blake slumped into his chair. Harris stared at the floor. Maya's gaze swept the room, meeting the eyes of every spectator, every camera. "Let the record show," she said, "that truth stands even when power attempts to bury it." The gavel struck once, the sharp crack echoing like a promise. The gavel's echo lingered like thunder trapped within the marble walls. Every face in the gallery remained fixed on the woman seated behind the bench, no longer a detainee in an orange jumpsuit, but Judge Maya Johnson, robed in black and commanding the room. She let the silence stretch until even the camera shutters stilled. "This proceeding," Maya began, her voice carrying a low resonance that demanded attention, "was scheduled as a routine bail hearing. But the facts of this case are neither routine nor hidden. They are recorded on body cameras, in station logs, and in the bruises I carry beneath this robe." A sharp intake of breath swept through the spectators. Blake shifted in his chair, jaw tight. Harris gripped the table edge, knuckles whitening. Maya turned her gaze to the bailiff. "Please call the first witness, Sergeant Rivera." A tall officer entered from a side door, crisp in uniform. His eyes flicked toward Maya with a flash of recognition and respect. Rivera took the stand, right hand raised for the oath. "Sergeant," Maya said evenly, "you were on duty when I was brought into the precinct last night." "Yes, Your Honor." "Describe what you observed." Rivera cleared his throat. Defendant that the judge was brought in around 11:40 p.m. No charges were explained at intake. She requested counsel multiple times. Officers Blake and Harris refused. The gallery buzzed. Reporters scribbled furiously. Blake shot to his feet. "Objection. This is irregular." Maya cut him off with a single glance. "Sit down, officer. You will have your turn." Blake froze, his protest dying on his lips. Maya continued. "Sergeant, did you witness the removal of my hair?" Rivera hesitated, shame flickering across his face. "Yes, Your Honor." Officer Blake ordered it. Officer Harris carried it out. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. A reporter muttered, "They shaved a judge." Blake slammed his palm on the table. "We had probable cause." Silence, Maya commanded, her tone slicing the air. "This is my courtroom. You will speak only when recognized." Blake's mouth snapped shut. Maya leaned forward. Sergeant, did I resist arrest at any point? No, Your Honor. You complied fully. And were any legitimate charges filed before or after intake? No, Your Honor. Maya nodded. Thank you, Sergeant. You may step down. Rivera rose, his eyes meeting hers with a subtle apology before exiting. Maya turned to the clerk. Enter in to record the station logs and body camera footage submitted overnight by Internal Affairs. The clerk handed over a sealed drive. The monitors flickered to life, displaying footage of the arrest. The room watched as Harris pinned Maya against the hood of the patrol car while Blake read no rights, the shaving cold brutal unfolded in clinical clarity. A collective gasp filled the chamber. Some reporters covered their mouths. Others began typing frantically, live streaming the revelation. Blake's face reddened. That's out of context, Officer Blake, Maya interrupted, her voice steely. You will have ample opportunity to explain your actions during the Internal Affairs inquiry and the ex-civil rights investigation that begins today. Harris's shoulders sagged. Sweat beaded on his forehead. Maya rested her hands on the bench. When you arrested me, you did not see a judge. You saw only a black woman in the wrong place at the wrong time. You presumed that power rested solely in your uniforms and that humiliation was justice. Her words rang like a bell, each syllable deliberate. But power, she continued, is accountable. And justice does not bow to badges or fear. The gallery erupted into murmurs of approval. One woman whispered, Amen. Another voice, trembling, said, Finally. Maya turned to the officers. Officer Blake, Officer Harris, do you deny the footage we have just seen? Blake stared at the floor. You thought what? Maya pressed, that she was a threat. Blake muttered, a threat. Maya repeated, her voice rising, a lone woman walking home, or a threat to the illusion that you can degrade without consequence. Harris swallowed hard. We didn't know who you were. Maya's eyes narrowed. You shouldn't have to know someone's title to respect their rights. The room fell silent, except for the frantic scratching of reporters' pens. This court, Maya declared, orders an immediate suspension of officers Blake and Harris, pending full investigation. All charges against me are dismissed with prejudice. Further, the district attorney will review potential criminal charges for civil rights violations. The bailiff stepped forward. Posture rigid. Officers, surrender your badges and weapons. Blake's face blanched. This can't now, the bailiff said firmly. Harris unpinned his badge with shaking hands. Blake hesitated, then followed, the clink of metal on wood echoing like a verdict. Reporters surged forward, cameras flashing like lightning. Maya allowed the noise to swell before lifting the gavel once more. The sound cracked through the chamber. Restoring order. Let this day stand as testimony, she said, her voice calm but unyielding, that the justice system is not a weapon for humiliation, that every citizen, regardless of color, status, or title, is entitled to dignity, and that those who betray that oath will answer not only to the law, but to the truth. The gallery rose to its feet in a spontaneous standing ovation. Some clapped, others wept. The sound was not loud but deep, a low thunder of solidarity. But Maya remained seated, eyes steady, robe draped like a shield. The officers she had once faced as a prisoner now stood stripped of their authority. This is not vengeance, she thought. This is reckoning. When the noise subsided, Maya looked to the clerk. Adjourn the case. Forward all findings to the district attorney's office and the civilian review board. Yes, Your Honor. The gavel struck once more, not as an end, but as a beginning. The courthouse steps glistened with the sheen of a late morning rain. Camera flashes flickered like restless stars as Judge Maya Johnson emerged, robe flowing in the damp breeze. What had begun as a humiliating night in a jail cell was now the nation's headline. Reporters surged forward, microphones raised. Judge Johnson, do you plan to file a civil suit? Will the officers face criminal charges? What message do you want the public to take from today? Maya paused at the top of the stairs, the marble beneath her shoes slick but solid. Behind her, officers Blake and Harris were escorted out in plainclothes, badges surrendered, sidearms gone, their eyes darting like trapped animals beneath the relentless flash of cameras. She let the noise swell before speaking, her voice clear and measured. This morning, she said, the court affirmed what should be self-evident, that dignity is not granted by uniforms or denied by skin. The law belongs to the people it serves, and no badge, no robe, including my own place, is anyone above accountability. The crowd hushed. Even the rain seemed to pause. Inside the courthouse lobby, District Attorney Alina Price addressed a smaller cluster of journalists. Internal Affairs has already opened an investigation, Price announced. Criminal charges for unlawful detention, assault, and civil rights violations are under active review. A reporter asked, "Do you believe the officers' ignorance of Judge Johnson's identity influenced their actions?" Price's jaw tightened. The Constitution does not require citizens to carry a title to deserve basic rights. The evidence speaks for itself. Across town, the footage of the night's events flooded social media. Clips of the shaving, the sneering taunts, and the stunned faces of the officers as the judge donned her robe went viral within hours. Hashtags bloomed. Hashtag justice is watching. Hashtag her honorand trended worldwide. Community leaders organized vigils outside the precinct, candles flickering against the evening wind. Civil rights attorneys offered pro bono support to others with similar stories. Calls for police reform swelled from murmurs to a roar. Meanwhile, the two officers faced a very different audience. Blake and Harris sat in a small, windowless room across from Internal Affairs investigators. Their shoulders sagged as recordings of their own voices played back at full volume. "Nice haircut." Blake's voice sneered from the speakers. "Hope you like cameras," Harris added in the recording. Each cruel remark landed like a hammer on the sterile table. Between them, an investigator paused the playback. "Officers, do you have any statement?" Blake stared at the floor. "We misjudged the situation." "Misjudged," the investigator repeated sharply. "You arrested a citizen without cause, denied counsel, and committed an assault. The only thing you misjudged was how long you could get away with it." Neither man replied. Back in her chambers, Maya finally allowed herself a long exhale. The room smelled faintly of polished wood and coffee. Ordinary, grounding. She removed her robe and touched the soft stubble on her scalp. The reminder of the night's violence. The humiliation had been real, the terror sharp, but neither defined her. Her clerk, Daniel, entered quietly. "Judge," the governor called. "She wants to commend your courage publicly." Maya gave a small, tired smile. "Tell her thank you. But courage isn't mine alone. It belongs to everyone who refuses to be silent." Daniel nodded, eyes bright with admiration. "The city's already talking about reforms, mandatory body cam reviews, independent oversight. You might have started something bigger." Maya turned toward the window, watching the gray clouds part to reveal a thin slice of sun. "Not started," she said softly, "just revealed what was already there." Later that evening, Maya attended a community gathering at a neighborhood church. The sanctuary pulsed with quiet energy. Neighbors, students, elders, and strangers drawn together by the day's events. An elderly woman with silver braids approached, tears glistening in her eyes. "You showed them, baby," she said, grasping Maya's hands. "You showed all of us that they can't take what's ours." Maya squeezed her hand gently. "We showed them," she corrected, "because I wasn't alone, not in that cell, not in this fight." Applause spread through the crowd, slow at first, then swelling into a standing ovation. Some clapped, others wept. The sound was not celebratory but resolute, to promise that the reckoning would not end. With one courtroom victory. Far from the church, Blake sat alone in a dark apartment. The glow of his phone illuminated headline after headline. "Officers suspended in judge arrest. Nation demands reform." His name trended beneath a cascade of angry comments. Job offers evaporated. Old friends stopped answering his calls. He hurled the phone onto the couch. But the silence that followed was heavier than any accusation. The career he once wielded like a weapon now lay in ruin. Harris, too, faced his own reckoning. Neighbors avoided eye contact. Family members whispered behind closed doors. Every siren in the night sounded like the echo of consequences closing in. Neither man could escape the footage replaying endlessly on screens across the country. Their own actions condemning them more powerfully than any judge ever could. Near midnight, Maya finally returned home. She stood before her bathroom mirror, tracing the faint shadow of hair beginning to grow back. For a moment, she let herself feel the ache of exhaustion, the sting of memories. Then she straightened, her reflection meeting her gaze with quiet strength. Her hair would return. Her dignity had never left. The night had tried to strip her of identity, but in doing so it revealed something unshakable. Justice, when claimed boldly, could transform humiliation into power. The city outside pulsed with sirens and distant laughter. alive with the messy rhythm of change. Maya placed a hand against the cool glass of the window and whispered to the night, "Let them know, we are watching." The lights of the city flickered back in silent agreement. 6 months later, the courthouse steps looked different. The cracked stone had been washed, but the memory of that rainy morning still lingered in the air. A landmark in the city's slow but certain transformation. Inside, a special press conference convened to announce the outcome of the investigation. District Attorney Alina Price stood at the podium, flanked by civil rights attorneys and community leaders. After a full review, she declared, "Former officers Blake and Harris have been found guilty of unlawful detention, assault, and violation of civil rights. They are each sentenced to 5 years in federal prison, with no possibility of serving in law enforcement again. This verdict affirms that authority is a privilege, not a weapon." Applause thundered through the chamber. Reporters captured every flash of emotion, tears, clenched fists, hopeful smiles. Beyond the courthouse, the ripples widened. A new civilian accountability board was established with full subpoena power. All precincts implemented real-time body camera monitoring and mandatory bias training. The city council passed legislation requiring external oversight of police misconduct cases across the country. Activists cited Johnson v. City of Brookhaven in lawsuits and policy proposals. Law schools added it to their constitutional law curriculum, naming it a watershed moment in civil rights jurisprudence. Judge Maya Johnson kept her schedule deliberately ordinary. She presided over housing disputes, family court hearings, and juvenile cases. Her gavel steady and impartial. Yet every time she entered the courtroom, people in the gallery sat a little straighter, aware of the quiet history behind her presence. One rainy evening, as she left the bench, a young law student approached her in the hallway. "Your Honor," the student said shyly, "I watched your case unfold while studying for finals. It made me decide to join the public defender's office instead of a corporate firm. I just wanted to thank you." Maya smiled, her eyes warm but serious. "Don't thank me. Serve the truth. That's how you change the system." The student nodded, eyes shining. Later that night, Maya returned home to the soft hum of the city. Her hair, now grown into a short, elegant curl, framed her face like a quiet crown. She brewed a cup of tea and stood at the window, watching traffic lights flicker across wet streets. Her reflection in the glass looked back at her not as a victim, not even as a symbol, but as a woman who had refused to bow to fear. The scars of that night remained invisible, yet permanent. A reminder that justice was not an abstract principle but a daily choice. She thought of Blake and Harris' names, now sealed in legal documents and news archives. Their downfall was not her triumph. It was the natural consequence of their own actions. Accountability was not revenge. It was balance. Maya lifted her tea in a small, private salute to the city beyond the glass. Let the law keep watching.